The first question for tonight really is appropriate for a book festival. It concerns books. Basically, a lot of books dealing with atheism have been doing very well. Mr. Harris's books and several other authors. So something about these books is resonating with some Americans and people around the world. My question, why? Why are these books popular? Why are they resonating? Who wants to take that?
Am I on? Am I mic'd? Okay. Well, I think they're resonating for two reasons. I really can only judge on the basis of my motive for writing them, but writing the two books that I wrote. Clearly, 9/11 did something to our discourse. The liabilities of having people be certain of paradise became exquisitely obvious to many of us. And then the Bush administration and the fact that we have a president who begins every day on his knees in prayer and has Bible study, I think, has made many people uncomfortable. So that, I think, is certainly motivates a lot of readers, but I think it's easy to draw the wrong message from the fact that there are multiple so-called new atheist bestsellers, because between me and Dawkins and Hitchens and Dennett, I think we've sold something like 3 million books. But of course, many people have bought all the books, so there's not 3 million readers there. There's maybe 1 million readers, and someone like Rick Warren sells 1 million books a month, and that's just one pastor. So it's still a very small segment of the book buying population, and as we all know, not so many people buy certainly hardcover books. So,
what do you think?
Well, there's no doubt that what is the Islamic threat, essentially, is which I'm sure we'll talk about more, but which I would say is of a particular brand of Islam, which is right now a virulent strain, is something that has indicted all religion in some people's eyes, and I would say also that science and the place of science, which is at the heart of, in particular, Dawkins and Dennett's book, is part of what people debate about and I think don't understand very well.
What do you think they don't get?
They don't get that science is powerful, but it's narrow. And the idea that science explains human life is an idea that I think is promoted only by people who are under the misimpression that the place of science in human life is a scientific question, when in fact it's a philosophical or religious question. And you can't explain the place of science in human life in scientific terms, just like you can't explain what an idea is in scientific terms. It's intangible and philosophical and religious. And I think that a lot of people are, or at least a number of people who are educated scientifically but not philosophically or theologically, think that now that science is as powerful and as potent as it is, there's no place for religion, or it has in some sense disproved religion.
What do you think of that, Mr.
Yeah, that's a very good place to start. Well, I think the one thing to notice is that the dialogue between science and religion has gone this way. It has been one of relentless and one-directional erosion of religious authority. I would challenge anyone here to think of a question upon which we once had a scientific answer, however inadequate, but for which now the best answer is a religious one. Now you can think of an uncountable number of questions that run the other way, where we once had a religious answer, and now the authority of religion has been battered and nullified by science and by moral progress and secular progress generally. And I think that's not an accident. And the one area where religion still seems to hold its ground is now under assault by science, and it's very good that it is under assault by science. And this is the whole issue of morality and human happiness and what constitutes the good life. These are, and let me just tell you why I think this is a scientific question. Even the place of science is ultimately a scientific question. Because surely there are objective facts to be learned about the basis of human happiness. The moment you recognize that morality and spirituality and and value is a matter of happiness and suffering, and moving suffering in the direction of happiness, then you realize that if there are objective facts to know about human happiness, and surely there are, facts about the way that genes and ideas and uses of attention and economic systems, social structures, all of these conspire to make us happy or miserable. And again, it's true that scientific discourse is just in the beginning of addressing these issues. But it's not too soon to say that love is better than hate in terms of ethics. And we are studying these things at the level of the brain. Eventually we will understand the brain basis of love and hate and the kinds of mechanisms, both cultural and personal, that ramify these states of mind. And there will be right and wrong answers. And we'll find, for instance, that honor killing is a bad strategy if you want to raise compassionate men. We know that already, but at some point we will know this biochemically.
What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, I can think of a couple of examples, although I don't think that that's crucial. But, for example, Marxism, which was the scientific study of societies and was thought of as a science.
Nobody thinks that's science.
Nobody thinks it is now. You said an answer now that people once thought was scientific but no longer do. That's a good example.
Oh, no, but
Let me just
clarify my question.
But a religious answer to life is much better now than this poor science that was Marxism, or for that matter, I would say, than the not very good science that was Freudianism. But go ahead.
Well, I agree on both counts. It's just that the point to make is that the antidote to bad science or failed science or scientific incompleteness is good science and more science. It's not religion.
By the way, I want to preempt that answer for religion. That's exactly the answer to bad religion or poor religion or failed religion is more religion, instead of saying that religion ought to be banished because, for example, people think mistakenly that good religion is flying planes into buildings. But I also think that the way that you set it up at the beginning is not the way that it used to be or that it has to be. That is, science and religion weren't classically in opposition, except in certain specific instances. And even those instances are much more complicated than we suspect. You know, Galileo and the Pope Urban, were friends. And there is a friendship issue as well as a lot of political issues that were involved in Galileo's eventual recantation. It wasn't just there was faith over here and there was Galileo over there, when in fact there were people in the church who agreed with Galileo. And Newton was a devout Christian, as you may know. And the relation between science and religion wasn't classically just oppositional. It was sometimes oppositional, but more often synergistic. And people believed that they coexisted, as they should. But you can't answer the question of what's a good life scientifically. You can't.
Why not?
I can say what will make you feel a certain way, but whether that's good, let me give you an example. You talked about happiness. There are some people who've lived very unhappy lives that religiously you would evaluate as very good lives. I mean, Rabbi Akiva at the end of his life was not happy. Right? I mean, he was martyred. But if you were to bring Rabbi Akiva back to life and say, would you say that the end of your life was good or bad, he would say, I have no doubt, painful but good. And if you said to him, but what about scientifically? He would say, well, scientifically I was being burned alive. But you can't evaluate my life scientifically. And in fact, I just want to give one little sermonic coda here. Anybody, just one. Yeah. Just one for the moment. Okay. How could you know me so quickly? Anybody who has children or who believes that they're doing something important in this world or who works in difficult circumstances to bring water to villages or food to hungry people would say that the idea that you could scientifically demonstrate a good life is worse than empty. It's a mockery.